Welcome to CHRISTIFIDELES. This is the program about the faithful people of Christ.
And today we're going to meet a priest who has spent 40 years slaving away in ministry in the Diocese of Orlando, Florida. You'll really enjoy this man who takes a look at his past and also has a little bit of advice for a priest of the future. So please do join us. We're very happy to welcome to the program Father Bob Hoeffner, an old friend and also a member of our diocese, a priest in our diocese for 40 years, celebrating your 40th anniversary this year. Father Bob is the pastor of St. Joseph's in Palm Bay and has quite a history in the diocese, which we're going to find out about right now. And so welcome, Father Bob.
Thank you. Good to be here.
40 years is a long time.
I know.
And as you get ready to celebrate, I'm sure things are flying through your head. Anything you can mention on the air?
Yeah, I think the years that I spent in the liturgy office were probably the most challenging.
You were the director of liturgy.
I was director of liturgy and the director of ecumenism. We never could get ecumenism off the ground. No, Bishop Grady wasn't that interested, for one thing. But he was
What
very...
years were these?
I went into the office in 1976, and I left the office in 1988. And so, however that is.
And that was all the time after Vatican II, too, when there was a lot of liturgical...
And my predecessor had taken care of most of the initial stuff. But when I got there, it was kind of, let's look at the parishes and see where they are at and what we can do. So we had basically three things. We're going to bring kindness and gentleness. We're going to make sure that when somebody calls, we answer the phone with a real voice, and that I would know the law, or my associate would know the law and ritual well enough that we could make the difference between what we liked and what was actually asked for. You know, so people could say, can we do this? And if it was my preference, I could say, oh, sure.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, I could have said, oh, no, you can't do that. Law says. But we need to know that where their options were. And that was kind of a different approach.
Yes, than had been.
Than had been before.
And you spent an unusual amount of time with Bishop Grady, didn't you?
Hours and hours and hours.
You were his MC.
I was master of ceremony and his chauffeur, and he called me U-turn Bob because it was a day before GPS,
right?
And it was kind of guess you could call, but we're talking to him. You're driving sometimes at night and everything else, and so I'd be talking to him. I'd pass, and I said, oh my, we got to turn around. And so at the end of the year, he would say, thank you very much for driving me all this time and all these places. And we probably could have cut the time in half if you hadn't done all the U-turns, but but thank you very much. It's appreciated. Have a nice summer.
You had quite a relationship with him. How would you characterize it? Like father, son, bishop, priest? How would you characterize that relationship?
At different times and different things. Sometimes. One time he questioned me on a ritual and backed us up four steps, and I had to do the song and dance to get us back on track. And so I told him we better never ever do that again, that I'm going to study the ritual before we start. Don't ever second guess me, because if a bishop tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. And then say, now what are we going to do to save the show? And so sometimes it was adversarial. Sometimes Bishop Grady was an interesting character, because he would play devil's advocate to everything that you brought up, any kind of a program idea, just to test it. Well, it was irritating him sometimes. And so we decided that we would just work out two possibilities that we could live with and present him with a choice, A or B.
And
so
not go through all the other
all the
possibilities.
rigmarole of everything else of arguing, defending every point of it, A or B, and that worked. But sometimes he didn't like A or B, and then we had some battles.
So it's a challenge being the director of liturgy in a diocese at any time. Was there a funny incident you recall? Because I think you're one of the funniest people I know. So was there anything funny that happened with Bishop Grady, who wasn't exactly known for his ha-ha-ness? I know he was very serious and a lovely man, and really known for tears, for crying at certain times. But do you have any kind of a funny story with him?
Just one pops into my head. We were in a Apopka for a confirmation, and he would have a beer sometimes for lunch, or he'd have a glass of wine for dinner, and that was it. For somehow we had dinner, and we finished dinner early, and he had his glass of wine, and we finished dinner, and then he had an after dinner aperitif. And it was Irish whiskey and this creamy stuff, this Irish...
Bailey's, probably.
Bailey's, yeah. And he had one of those, and he drank it too fast, and somebody filled his glass up, and he drank another. Said, "This is pretty good stuff." Well, by the time we got to the confirmation, he was looped. And we're all saying, how do you get out of this? How do you get this man? And he was talking about St. Francis and the birds and everything. And everyone said, "What do we do with this?"
And
he saved himself. It was fine.
Yeah.
And he was a gentle enough man and soft enough at that evening that all these altar girls showed up for confirmation, and they weren't allowed at the time, but they tried it at St. Francis. And so he looked at them, and they all had long hair, and everything was all beautiful, little sandals on, and everything else. He said, "Good evening, guys. How you doing? and what grade are you in, son?"
That was one way to get around it. Well, now, do you want to ask a question, John?
Well,
you're sitting here so quietly.
I just want to say we aren't going to mention what year that was in the confirmation.
No, we're not. Or where it was. Yeah.
Where it was, they said a Apopka.
Oh, that's right.
But you're celebrating your 40th, so which was pretty close to when the diocese began. Were you one of the first American priests that were ordained to our diocese?
Yeah, yeah. I woke up my second year of philosophy, which was the last year of college, and I woke up and the news was on the radio, and they started reading off the dioceses that were in the new Diocese of St. Petersburg. And Orange County, St. Lucie County, my home county, was listed. And the next day, they were giving the list of those that were caught off into the Diocese of Orlando. And St. Lucie came in again. I'm saying, I'm moving fast here, and I haven't gotten out of my room.
You grew up in
Fort Pierce.
Yeah. So suddenly you were in a new diocese.
Yeah, and we were kind of used to it at that point. We were in the Diocese of St. Augustine, and they were cut off in the Archdiocese of Miami. And then for a day we were in St. Petersburg, and then we were into Orlando, and then we became part of West Palm. And my dad said, "I'm not going to give anymore because I'm in the 5th diocese. I'm never going to have a retirement home that I can go to."
No, 5 dioceses in 1 week, But how have you seen our diocese change? Because you've seen the whole movement of our diocese from the beginning.
Oh yeah, we were kind of wild and woolly in the beginning. I mean, it's pretty sedated now, but
it was like pioneer days.
Yeah.
I was there too, so it was like pioneer.
And we were just kind of sucking up things on the national scene. And interesting things were happening, like with priest councils and liturgy federations and lay ministries. All those things were starting to pop because they were far enough away from the council to have people say, "Oh, it's not going to go away. Let's go somewhere with it." And they started to organize. And when that organization happened, all kinds of material was coming out, and we were just grabbing it and running with it. And we had an incredibly wonderful staff in the chancery. And I had tried 2 years of pastoral work as an associate pastor, and I realized that if you get a tough pastor, you don't move anything. You just do what you're told to do. And then when I was put it in the chancery, and we pretty much with Bishop Grady, you had free reign. You know, once he agreed to let you go, he didn't mess with you. You know, you could do what you want to do at your creative best, and it was exciting.
When you took over the liturgy office, was there really a liturgy office?
There was.
Yeah.
There was a liturgy office, and it had been established.
And what did they? I mean, did they do much? Or I know it was like, I mean, it was the creation of a diocese,
Yeah.
and it takes a couple of years for these things to take effect.
Yeah, but Bob Troutman had organized that fairly well, and he had some classmates that were like Gordon Truitt and people who had come down to help him pull that together, and so it was established. It's just that not too many people were listening to it,
Yeah.
you know, because we were not used to in our area and in Florida. We were really not used to having that kind of direct contact with the diocese. It was always way far away.
Right, it
you
was.
know? It was either the north part of the state or the southern part of the state. All of a sudden, it's an hour away from anywhere, and you're saying, oh, and people are getting involved in parish life. The finest thing that I think ever happened for us in the liturgy office was, instead of giving mandates and directives and everything else, which was necessary to do so that people could have that in one place, and Bob did that. But we got a team together to go visit parishes on invitation, and we would go in and we would just sit there for the weekend and look at how they did their liturgy and everything else. And the purpose was to compliment them on what they were doing well, on their strengths, and make suggestions of what they might do to make it better.
Yeah.
And the pastor, and it was right down to the pastor's style, preaching, Eucharistic ministers, everything else, you know, and those things were just coming in. I did the first class of Eucharistic ministers, and it was so exciting. The people were just, you know, they were nervous.
Everything was
everything
at
was
the
new,
beginning.
yeah. And to go in and study that, and then pat them on the back, and the chancery comes in for an evaluation to see what you're doing well.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's a whole different
And-
model.
and
And
we
it
isn't
was
it? Yeah.
accepted at the
Yeah.
time because
Yeah.
they weren't used to the chancery
right.
slapping their hands or anything like that.
That's right. And it was just so nice, and it was positive, and we covered probably close to half of the parishes, and the rest of them didn't invite us in because they
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 didn't
thought
want to
we
hear
were
it.
coming in with the critical
Yeah.
list, you know, and nail them.
But, you know, I do remember from those days that one of my memories is that we were always, or I was always in a car driving someplace. We were always going out to different parishes, and sometimes in the middle of the night, packing a car up and going out. So there was a lot of that outreach you're
We
describing.
were a
Right.
little slightly bigger diocese at that time too, because West Palm Beach wasn't in it.
Hadn't
That's
broken
right.
off yet,
Right,
so
yeah.
it was a
Yeah,
trip.
you could spend time going all the way down to Vero Beach.
Yeah, it was a drive. Well, we're going to take a little break and come back then to find out a little bit more about your own parish work and pastordom. Okay, so we'll be right back. We're back now with Father Bob Hoeffner, who's celebrating his 40th anniversary of ordination, and who is currently the pastor at St. Joseph's in Palm Bay. We were talking a minute ago about your work in the liturgy office of the diocese and kind of how the diocese developed and changed. But let's concentrate on your parish work. So you've been in a number of parishes either as an associate or as pastor, 6 or 7 of them.
4.
4.
That's it.
Oh, 4. Okay. And then you have a long time at St. Isaac Jogues. And I think you were involved in quite a building project there, right?
Yeah, we started-
Talk
I
about
started-
that.
You were
started
the
that
founding
parish.
pastor, weren't you?
Were you the founding pastor of Isaac Jogues? Okay.
Yeah, I was sent to Blessed Trinity as an administrator. I was still working full time in the chancery, and Bishop it opened up. Blessed Trinity opened up for people to apply, so I applied for that. And Bishop Grady said, "Oh, you want to be a pastor?" I said, "Oh yeah." I got a place for you. I said, "Oh yeah, which Blessed Trinity?" He says, "No, it doesn't have a name yet."
The nameless church.
Yeah. And so he told me, it's out near the airport. That's Blessed Trinity. Oh no, it's east of that. You know? It doesn't exist yet. We're carving a new parish.
It's going to be somewhere
So he
there.
gave me the opportunity to name it, and so I was sitting at a priest's dinner. He was sitting behind me at the next table, and somebody said, "What are you going to call the parish?" I said, the parish dump is right in the middle of the parish boundaries. And so I was thinking of, Our Lady of Refuse, or Refuge of Sinners, or Lord of the Flies. I thought that was very funny.
That is funny.
He did not think that funny.
No.
And so he stood up, turned around, put his hand on my shoulder, and says, "It's St. Isaac Jogues."
So he decided.
Yeah, so I didn't get to name this parish. But I told, without missing a beat, I said, "Oh, that's great. That was the first full-length book I ever read in my life as a kid." I says, "Saint Among the Hurons."
Interesting.
And so he says, "Good. I'm glad you're happy." I went back to his dinner.
You had the opportunity to build quite a church there, and with your liturgical background, I'm sure that must have been kind of challenging and fun.
Part of it, but I didn't get to build the church. The church was built after I left there. I built other buildings, centers, and stuff like that, and offices. But laying it out was fun. But what was really fun was forming the parish, so that we had
Forming the community.
Forming the community. That we were strange in one way, that there were just people that were willing to be there because of the neighborhood. They were in the neighborhood, and it was out in the middle of a cow pasture.
Yeah, right.
And so we started organizing it. And the first time we met in the VFW hall, and on Sunday mornings with the smell of beer and smoke and everything else. And on Saturday afternoons we met at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, and they were wonderful to us. Missouri Synod community, but they welcomed us. We had 3 Hispanic families the first Sunday that we met. When I left there, we had about 3,000 families, and 80% of them were Hispanic families from all different parts of 11 different countries in Latin America. And
Fortunately, you speak Spanish.
Yeah,
so
but
that helps.
it was interesting to try and keep the whole thing, running the parish and all the services of the parish and all the programs of the parish, to keep those as bilingual and multicultural beyond the 2 languages, because we had a good smattering of Jamaicans that were of Chinese heritage. We had Tagalog-speaking Filipinos, and there was all kinds of folks there.
Yeah.
And to bring them in by naming them to different ministries, so that people could see the faces of our parish.
That's a huge challenge.
And then bringing them in, but once you said, "No, this is the way we're going to do it," and that's the neat part about being a pastor. You said, "No, I don't know how we're going to do it, but this is what we're going to do." We're going to make sure that everybody sees who we are and appreciates that.
So you set the vision, really.
And so, but once you said, you got a strong say, "No, this is what we want to do because it's the thing to do." Here, why don't we read, this encyclical of the Pope about the movement of peoples, and once that was accepted and explained, I said, all right, let's
go.
Scribble about how we're going to do it and how we're going to do it well.
Well, now, St. Joseph's in Palm Bay is a little different from that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very white.
Yeah. Well, say a word about your community there, and let it be nice.
Yeah. When I got there, I offered, because I've been doing Spanish masses and stuff. I offered to do that if they wanted. And there's a small community north of us and a small community south of us, and the parishes north and south, Our Lady of Lourdes and Our Lady of Grace, that had long-standing Hispanic communities.
Oh.
And so I offered, and I said, "No, thank you. We're here because we like the English, and we're, and a lot of ours didn't come from other countries. They came from Brooklyn, and so
right. So they already had English.
And we have Filipinos, and we have islanders, English-speaking islanders, Jamaicans, and different folks. And,
what would you say the main difference is between having a parish inland and having a parish on the coast? Because it seems like there are slightly different cultures going on.
Oh yeah, you can see it in the kids. The kids in Orlando are really sophisticated, as far as like Disney is a place to work. It's the Mouse House, and they have relatives that work there, either teenage brothers and sisters or children that work at Disney, and they understand all the underground stuff. And our kids don't understand any of that. They really enjoy going to Disney to have fun. And so that for them, that's a great great day or weekend to go over to Disney and spend the weekend there, because they're still fascinated by it. It's not been, it hasn't
They don't
been,
live in
it
a
hasn't been
city.
demythed,
Yeah.
you know, for them. And so they're that way. We don't have gangs. You know,
Interesting, isn't it?
I'd like to ask you a question. I know
Go
it's
ahead.
veering off the topic, but you were the first to bring the television mass
Yeah.
to this diocese.
Yeah.
Not actually. I took
Really?
it over.
You
I
took
it
over the-
Yeah, it was terrible. Well, they would film one mass and 3 homilies beyond that, and then they would slice the mass, slice the mass homilies into
it.
the one mass.
Oh, you're kidding.
And so if you made a mistake, you made it 4 times.
Four times.
You know,
Yeah.
and if you change seasons in the middle of it, well, you may.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, so you're still in green. It's the middle of Advent, but you're still in green. And so
How long did you work with the
I
TV mass?
came down from studying in Washington, and 3 priests got together with me on a retreat, and they said, "I think we should do this." And I said, "I don't think. Let me get settled in the office." And, no, you should do this. And so they marched me in, and to the director at that point, director of communications. I can't remember.
David Page?
Sister.
Sister, the sister that came.
Yeah, and
With Dave
and
Page.
she says, he'll
Adele.
help you. He'll help you with that, with the TV mass. He'll take it over. And she says, "Oh, good, that's fine." So we did a whole different format, and we got it together and got folks.
And eventually I became communications director, and we worked together. And let me tell you that there was a living, breathing community around that TV mass, very much like around yours. But Father Bob was their pastor.
Sure.
You were their pastor. We used to get notes from people saying to pray for them, to pray for their family. We tried to respond, but there was a real community going on out there, don't you think?
Yeah, and we
from
did it
those
for 28
years.
years.
Yeah,
28
for a
years,
long
that's
time.
amazing. It was a good
And
time.
then we did reel to reel for a few years together. That was a lot of fun, which was something like CHRISTIFIDELES. It highlighted people in the diocese.
Yeah, that was fun.
And you're kind of a natural at that, don't you think? You enjoyed it anyway.
BS.
A BSer, well, yes, that,
But in many ways, you need
But
to
you
be
come across.
You need to be commended, because
yeah.
the same stuff, many of the things that we're doing on CCTN, you initiated
That's right.
in your ministry and through the
Communications.
liturgy office and communication office of the diocese. And
Thank you.
you were
One of the things, though, I mean, and you still have the same kind of a crunch, but we had to do it in 30
Yeah.
28 minutes and 26 seconds.
Right.
And to crunch it off, and so we
yeah.
dropped some things, and
Right.
that drove some.
But you were a master at doing that homily just at the right amount of time. Wonderful homilies. Some priests in our diocese used to tune in to hear his homily before they did theirs.
I know.
Just get an idea.
So you were a master at that. That was great. Well, as we come to the end of this time, you're looking at 40 years and backwards, and maybe, hopefully 20 years ahead of you. But what would you say to a young man who's thinking of becoming a priest today? Let's say there's a Florida kid out there like you were from Fort Pierce, and
Yeah.
he's thinking of this and this church in Florida. What would be your advice?
I would, well, kind of what level he's at,
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of target 11 years old, and in 11th grade.
But let's say he's the age you were when you first really
Oh my
seriously
God,
thought this.
I was 12 years old. I
Okay,
was in by
so?
13, 14. But I think that I would encourage them to be idealistic, because, I mean, basically, that's what we are. If we go into this thing looking at the worst, or let's just accept what we got right now, because I'll teach you how to put up with it. I mean, who's going to go there? But you could also say that you better not like nice things, because you're not going to get paid much, and and you're not going to, if you get $50 a month as a raise, don't bet on it. You may not get that every year. You're not. Retirement isn't great,
But what is great?
What is great is that people love you. I mean, they absolutely love you. You may miss companionship at home, but you'll never miss companionship. I wouldn't anyway. I mean, people really deeply care for you. People are, they'll tell you things that you'd never think that anybody would ever share with anybody. Because they know that they've got confidence in you, and they're looking for every word that comes out of your mouth to say, give me a knot to hold on to. I'm at the end of my rope. And that's a magnificent moment. And then we can get a whole group of people in a teachable moment. The part of my ministry as a pastor or as a priest is always, I love preaching, you know. And when I had 2 teachers for homiletics. One was a sister of St. Dominic, and from Barry College. She was excellent, and she would just stop you if you just, what are you trying to say? You're boring me to tears, you know. And the other one showed you all kinds of finesse. He was a young priest of the Diocese of Orlando, Miami, and he was young, he was good looking, he had all kinds of finesse, but he wasn't honest. And he would teach you how to get through and fool people. And so I said, I will never ever get up if I don't have something to say, and I'm not clear on what I'm going to say. And I will always be honest, to the point if I have nothing to say, I'll say, I have nothing to say. Sorry. And
That's
with
a good
that,
statement for not only a seminarian, but for all priests. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
And so I would tell them to be honest with yourself and know that you're going to be put in a position where people adore you.
Yeah.
And they'll listen to you, or they will tear you to pieces. You know?
But the privileges that you're allowed into people's lives, and it's a joy. And thank God you've had something to say all these years in an honest way, and oftentimes a humorous way. Thank you, and thank you for your 40 years. Exactly. Thank you for your 40 years.
It's been a joy.
Well, it's been a joy for us too. So thank you, Father Bob Hoeffner.
Thanks.
You know, Carol, Father Bob is a very interesting character. Having been ordained for 40 years and knowing that the Diocese of Orlando is a fairly new diocese, he was a part of that growth, and not only of the Diocese of Orlando, but of priesthood. It's changed a great deal in that 40 years.
That's right. It's quite a time span, and I especially liked his bit of advice too to a priest of the future. So
Absolutely.
It was really great to be able to talk with Father Bob. And so thank you for being with us. And remember that we are the face of God for others. So let's try to live that way.
Amen.